Welcome to the Green Living Gurus. This is Therese Fortin Barnes, your host of the Green Living Gurus podcast and also YouTube channel and website and Facebook page and group and all that great social media and LinkedIn and Instagram. But today I have a very special guest with me and her name is Roslyn Kent, and she owns a business called Plant First Nutrition. And she is a registered holistic nutritionist based out of Vancouver, Canada, the opposite side of our great, not country, but you're in Canada. And I'm in Buffalo, New York. And we feel like we are neighbors to Canadians and best friends with so many Canadians. But it's so great to meet you by way of Zoom, Roslyn, and I love what you are doing. I love your website, and I love everything that you have to offer people, and your energy and your enthusiasm and your history and your story. So why don't we first tell people a little bit about yourself and your interesting path to where you are now and how you got there.
Mm-hmm. Yeah, thanks, Therese. It's so nice to meet you and finally get on the podcast. I've heard, so many great things. And yeah, this area of, expertise or whatever you want to call it, it kind of just, it fell into my lap like a lot of people. That happens for them as well, just based on their own life experiences. And I'm sure you could say the same thing. But I started experiencing a lot of symptoms and a lot of body imbalances back in, I don't even know what year it was, but it was in the middle of high school, I would say. And I just knew something was wrong. It's just started to slowly creep up on me, and I was getting all the abdominal pain, cramping. I was getting really bad bloating, gas, all those classic symptoms that a lot of women are struggling with these days, yet no one is really talking about them as an issue and an imbalance. So it just started to become worse and worse over the years. And, no one was really, I went to every practitioner, no one was really telling me what was going on. I was feeling listened to, but not heard, if that makes sense. And everyone was telling me the same things. It's probably your stress. It's probably all in your head. You're going through a phase. You're probably just in that transitionary phase, and you're getting into university, and things are going to be more stressful than usual. I saw dieticians. I saw nutritionists. I saw therapists. Thinking it was all in my head. I saw a GI specialist on multiple accounts. I saw naturopath. It was unbelievable how many different practitioners I saw. And when I went to not to the naturopath, it was the GI specialist. On both occasions, he said the same thing. Try the low FODMAP diet, which is this really, really restrictive diet. No one really tells you how to do it, but they tell you should do it. He told me to Google it. Take a fiber supplement, reduce your stress, that kind of thing. And it was really just these overarching recommendations. And he wasn't explaining to me what was going on in my body. And I was so sick and tired of feeling sick and tired, and no one really giving me the right foundation to, feel empowered in my body and understand what's going on in my body. No one was talking about the specifics of diet. Even the dietitian was really not honing in on what was contributing to these imbalances. And, the fact that I was in constant pain all the time, every time I ate. There was nights where I was literally curled up in a ball in my bed. I couldn't move or could barely breathe because the cramping was so bad, and I didn't know what the heck was going on. So it stopped me from really enjoying my social life in university and at the end of high school too, which were supposed to be really fun times, right? After fourth year university, I decided, I'm just going to change my diet. And it wasn't for health reasons initially. Initially, it was just, for the curiosity of the ethics and the environmental impact that, meat and dairy has on the environment. And a lot more people are becoming aware of it now, but it was just starting to become something that was brought to the surface at that time. So this was around 2015. And I was like, okay, overnight, I'm just no animal products. That's it. And I did it overnight, and I never really looked back. And it was one of those things where I went vegan, but I wasn't really plant-based at the time. It was more important to me to, check off those environmental, ethical boxes. And that's what I did. So went full force, vegan, and I wasn't like a preachy vegan or anything like that, but I was just super happy to live in this new lifestyle, and my parents were not happy with me at all. And that was fine. Eventually they came around, but and now everyone understands that this is my way of life. But eventually I started to transition more to a plant-based, more whole food plant-based lifestyle, because I went back to school after university to study something completely different. Originally I was studying, business and communications. And then I was like, okay, I'm going to become a nutritionist. This is something I'm incredibly passionate about. This diet has started to change the way I was experiencing symptoms. I didn't even realize it, but slowly my symptoms started to really just like were significantly better. And I hadn't even paid much attention to that. All of a sudden one day I was like, whoa, this diet has actually changed the way my body operates. So I went back to school and I was like, this is something I want to teach more women about. And I think that there has to be a reason why this is making sense for me, why this is working in my favor. And so I just need to understand the why more, and I need to understand the science. So I went back to school, became a registered holistic nutritionist. It was a 1-year intensive program. But then beyond that, I did so much research on my own. I literally was just diving into the literature on why is the microbiome playing a role in how all of these intestinal imbalances are popping up. And the fact, Crohn's, colitis, IBS, colon cancer, everything in the body is connected. And I know we wanted to talk about immune health, even that 70% of the immune system lives in the gut. It's all connected to the microbiome. And no one was telling me this whole time I was struggling with all these symptoms. So it just baffled me. And so now I feel pretty lucky to understand the why and be teaching all these other women the why. And they're just fascinated. Every single day I talk to someone who's like, you care more about, empowering me to understand what's going on in my body than any doctor I've ever seen. And I'm not a doctor and I'll never pretend to be a doctor, but at least I understand the research, the science, and what's going on in the microbiome and how that plays a role in so many of these women's, bodies. It's fascinating.
Now you say so many women's because women is really your niche, right?
Yes. Yeah.
Okay.
Yeah, and you know what? It's prevalent in men too, but a lot of men aren't talking about it. And I think that's honestly a whole other area of like, that needs attention because men aren't talking about it. They're going through the same thing. I think it's usually, I think it's like 60-40 women or 70-30. It's a pretty big, it's more toward the female side of things. More women get it or have experience with IBS in general and that kind of condition. But men are still experiencing it. But yes, that is my niche. Women are my niche. And I wish, someone needs to step into that because that's also an important area that no one's really talking about.
So I feel like people don't understand what plant-based is.
Yes.
And they're confused. They feel like you're just eating plant. I hear it all the time. So give us your synopsis of what it all means.
Yeah, for sure. So I would say there's a difference between vegan and plant-based too, and that's where the confusion lies, I think. So originally, I started out as a vegan. And so vegan is more someone who's really concerned with, getting all animal products out of the diet. That's the main concern there. So no eggs, no dairy products of any kind, including cheese. And everyone's like, no, but I love the cheese. No seafood, no meat. And yeah, I think that's pretty much it. But they're also concerned with getting out the leather and getting out, any animal byproducts in their food, like gelatin and that kind of stuff. Whereas plant-based and whole food plant-based is where and that's the space I'm in now, is more, leaning more less toward the ethics side, although that's still really important to me, more focused on the whole food aspect and eating ingredients, not foods with ingredient lists, if that makes sense. So eating, whole legumes, whole grains, like not processed grains, not the cereals and the breads and the pastas, although I do still eat those things, but I eat very, very unrefined whole grain versions of those things. And as many whole fruits and vegetables as possible. That's obviously the biggest category there. So yeah, you're eating any kind of plant. And you know what? Like people think, oh, you must just eat salad. That's obviously the stereotype that's thought about people who eat plant-based or vegan or whatever you want to call it. But it's not. Like honestly, my plate became much more colorful, much more diverse. Like the amount of different foods that I'm eating that I would have never, ever, ever eaten before is just crazy. And most people don't realize they're eating the same 20 to 30 foods every single week, and they're not diversifying outside of that. And especially when they add in all these animal products, they stick to the same foods like corn and tomato and carrots. Those make up a huge portion of, the standard American diet. And you don't realize that there's actually 300,000 edible plants on this planet. Most of us are only eating like a good 20, 30 of them, but there's only 200 grown commercially. So that means we're missing out on 1,500 times the amount of, diversity that we could be getting in our diet, which is crazy. So my mission is now, as a plant-based eater, try all these different foods, all the different grains, all the different legumes, all the different beans, all the different, fruits and vegetables, and trying to get in as much different as many different whole foods as possible into my diet. So it's crazy what that can look like on a plate, and how people kind of just associate that with a very small-minded picture of what plant-based looks like. So it's much more than that, which is crazy.
Yeah, and I know there are so many wonderful recipes that people think plant-based, oh, it's like a salad or zucchini, but you can make so many different things with plants, vegetables, and which is amazing, because I know we have a great restaurant here, a couple of them, that you go there and you almost think you're eating meat, whether it's a portobello mushroom, you know, that they saute a certain way, or certain
absolutely.
or beef.
No, for sure. There's like oyster mushrooms, you can make them have the texture like a meaty texture. Jackfruit. Yeah. Oh, really? Yeah, awesome. Jackfruit's another one. I mean, we've gotten to the space where everyone's trying to mimic meat with like meat alternatives, which are fine every once in a while. And I'll always tell my clients it's about balance. I eat them too every once in a while. But yeah, when we're talking about, you can really hone in on the incredible, you know, textures and flavors of all these different plant foods. And yeah, for sure, you can make them mimic meat. And if you need to do that, that's amazing. You're still eating plants. It doesn't really matter. Yeah. And
what you're feeling on organic?
I try and buy organic as much as I possibly can. I mean, obviously everyone's on some sort of budget. So if you can't buy 100% organic, that's totally fine. I think this organic is not perfect. Homegrown is pretty much as close as you can get to perfect, I'd say. Organic is still better than conventional, I would say. I mean, there's obviously, I don't know, you could probably speak to this more than I can, but the nutrient bioavailability of, you know, the nutrient profile in that food increases exponentially when we're talking about organic versus conventional, which is really interesting, right? And I mean, again, not perfect. The growing methods are not perfect, but it is better than, you know, a lot of the monocropping that we talk about and see, you know. So I think for sure it's a better option, and I will always advocate for organic over conventional, and will say buy as much organic as you can. And if you can't buy all organic, at least buy, you know, things like your leafy greens, your berries, the dirty dozen kind of thing. You know, because what goes in your body matters, and you know all about that, and it's like that impacts your microbiome, and that is impacting your overall health in a number of different ways. So absolutely, if you can buy organic, mostly organic, or if you can grow your own food, even better, which is my favorite thing.
Yes, I know. Summertime, we grow as much as we possibly can here, and we have a little garden, and we jam it all in. One of the big things I've been getting into are sprouting seeds.
Yes, let's talk about sprouts. Oh my goodness, those are so amazing. I've been getting into that too. So good.
Yeah.
And from a nutrient standpoint too, people don't realize, like, lentil sprouts versus regular lentils, 2 times the amount of vitamin C, 3 times the amount of antioxidants. Like, that is incredible. And that's something you don't even need a garden for. You don't need a green thumb. You just need a jar of seeds. I have some seeds on the counter, broccoli sprouts, alfalfa sprouts. I brought them up here. You know what? Like, that's like the best thing that anyone could get into if you want to start off on.
I know. Yeah. I have the lentil seeds, or the lentil sprouts. I did them the other day, and they are wonderful. I know. I brought a little kit. It was great. And this hanging little thing, it's beautiful little glass jar, and wash it up a couple times a day, and then you have sprouts in 3 or 4 days. It's fabulous. So
I know.
And what about protein?
Protein, well, that's a myth. And like, everyone's, you know, 97% of Americans are getting enough protein, but, you know, no one is getting enough fiber. And so we need to shift that dialogue, and everyone is overeating protein. So you can get as much protein as you possibly need. Like, I've done Chronometer, you know, MyFitnessPal tracking, and seeing how much protein I'm getting. I'm always getting as much as I need. We need about 0.8 grams per kilogram of body weight of protein in our diet. Usually that's, unless you're a high performing athlete. And you can get that super easily on a plant-based diet. All plants have protein. The beans and legumes, like tofu and soy, as long as they're organic and non-GMO, are amazing sources of protein. All beans and legumes though, and whole grains have protein, quinoa packed with protein, nuts and seeds have protein, right? You don't even realize how much it adds up, as long as you're, again, that diversity aspect, you know, that we're talking about. As long as you're getting enough diversity in your diet, protein isn't even an issue, unless, of course, right, you're a high performing athlete, you're an endurance athlete, whatever it is, that's more important. But for the average person, you're overdoing protein like no other, and it's actually leading to cancer, and people aren't realizing that. If you've read the China study, you'll know all about that. But yeah, again, no one is getting enough fiber, and the average American woman is getting 14 grams of fiber a day, which is like 10 grams less than the measly 25 gram per day recommendation, which is just enough to not get disease. So we should be aiming for 45, 55 grams of fiber a day, and no one's even getting close to that. And that is one of the biggest underlying problems in, you know, the epidemic of chronic disease and non-communicable disease in the States and in North America in general. So, I mean, we're talking about protein so much, and it's always a question, and it's such a valid question, because if you're not educated in plant-based diets, like, it's a concern. But no one's ever died of protein deficiency. I mean, no one really ever dies of protein deficiency in the Western world, but a lot of people are, you know, dying of chronic illness that stems from a, you know, undernourished, like, in terms of fiber and in terms of plant foods, like that kind of, you know, lack there is really, really a concern.
And I presume nuts, you really prefer the raw, sprouted, raw.
Nuts, nuts and seeds, you mean?
Yeah.
Yeah, I mean, that's honestly, there's some studies that show that, you know, toasted nuts are going to have, because of the omega-3s usually in those nuts, and the fragile fatty acid oils that are in there, yeah, I definitely prefer raw. But again, there's a lot of different nitty-gritties of, like, diet that we can get into. Of course, raw is better. Absolutely. Sprouted is better. But if all you have access to is whatever you have access to, then, I mean, nuts and seeds, yeah, of course you're going to. Yeah, and I think raw and, like, that kind of stuff is always better. But there's a lot of people who don't realize how, you know, depending on where you live, how much access you have compared to some people. Like, I have clients that literally go to the grocery store, they're like, Roz, I can't find 5 of the 10 vegetables that you know, have told me to include in this meal plan. And it's like, you got to go with what you want to go with. But yes, raw is technically better, just because of the omega oils usually that are present in those nuts, especially when we're talking about like walnuts and stuff like that.
Right. So your specialty is women. Do you have, like, a special issue that a woman is having a problem with, or is it just health in general, or is it IBS, or is there something you really have a specialty in that, you know, with women?
Yeah, so it's IBS and, you know, all those classic symptoms. So most women who have all those symptoms a lot of women don't realize they actually have irritable bowel syndrome, or they just have some sort of imbalance in general in the gut. So it's, you know, the classic constipation. So many women and so many people in general are constipated. They don't even realize it. Diarrhea, bloating, gas, abdominal pain, that kind of stuff. I help women understand the why that is going on. And a lot of these women are also dealing with severe sensitivities to food, and that's when the elimination stuff starts to come in. So I'm helping them get back the plant-based diversity and get back on a route where those foods are no longer irritating to them, and they can eat the whole range, you know, that whole library of that plant kingdom, and not feel restricted and not feel like they're in pain all the time. And really hone in on the power of all these different types of fiber and the phytonutrients in plant kingdom. So yes, it's IBS, it's irritable bowel syndrome, and it's something a lot of people laugh at, but it's a serious thing, and it's debilitating for a lot of people. A lot of women actually, like, lose their jobs over it. So it depends how severe it is, but yes, that is my specialty.
Yes, I've traveled with friends before when they can't go to the bathroom for a few days, and it freaks me out because it's just not good for you at all.
No.
And I feel bad for them, because it's just, I know how horrible it could make somebody feel. And so that's great. Yeah. So without giving any names, do you have, like, a couple examples of somebody you're working with and some stories of how it really, you know, changed their life and has really helped them?
Yeah. So, for example, I have a client that, you know, she was plant-based or vegan when she came into my program, and she had literally cut out all gluten-containing grains, which, you know, gluten, depending on the person, may or may not be good for your diet. But I fully believe it's usually not gluten that's the issue. It's the processing of the foods that we're eating that contain gluten. Anyway, so she cut out, like, pretty much all whole grains, and she had cut out lots of different fruits, stone fruits, apples, bananas. She couldn't eat any of it. She said, I would get really debilitating cramping pain. I would have diarrhea immediately. And now that she's been working with me, I had a call with her yesterday. She's like, Roz, I'm able to introduce apples. I had whole barley for the first time, and, you know, whole rye kernels or rye berries. And I'm able to have all stone fruits again, and I don't feel like I'm in pain anymore. Or I had another client who was full paleo. She went full, like, heavy on the meat, no dairy, because that's not included in paleo, no whole grains, no legumes, because, you know, we're told that lectins are bad and all these different pseudoscience claims. And, you know, and she literally was not eating many plant foods, mostly just vegetables and fruit, and just certain fruits at that. And she became even more restrictive. She has PCOS and really bad, hormonal imbalances, and she was chronic diarrhea every single day. And she's been on this journey for 2 months now, not even. And she's like, I have no more urgency to go to the bathroom. My periods are substantially lighter and easier for me to handle. I don't get acne anymore. And she's having all these crazy changes. She's like, I can sleep through the night. I have energy when I wake up. I don't feel like I'm drowsy when I wake up anymore. So it's the power of, plants and getting out of some of these inflammatory foods. And of course, whole food plant-based tackles that processed food component as well, or, it should, if you're going down that whole food route. And it's been pretty incredible to see these women change and, get their life back, because I talk to so many women who are literally like, hey, Roz, I have a list of 10 foods I can eat. And if I, step outside of that square, I get debilitating symptoms. I cannot do anything. I cannot function. I have to know where the closest bathroom is. And it's just like that story, that picture right there is like my why, because no one should have to live like that. And we don't realize that can actually lead to things like colon cancer and something way more severe, like inflammatory bowel disease, which is very different than IBS down the line. So yeah, it's been like a really life-changing experience to be able to change their lives as well, because I definitely had a lot of symptoms going on, but the severity was nowhere near what I'm seeing in a lot of women today.
Right. And it must be so wonderful to see results from your clients and being so happy and changing their whole overall. Yeah, that's great. Yeah. So with IBS, are there any quick tips or quick things that you can tell us to try to combat IBS?
Absolutely. So get yourself on the right probiotic, and that is not by no means the best recommendation. It's always going to have to do with diet, but when we're talking about things beyond diet and beyond diversifying and, getting in as many different plant foods as possible and getting out the processed stuff, I always recommend on top of that, a really, really good probiotic. There's only one that I know to date that actually does double-blind, placebo-controlled, clinical research on humans to understand how their product works. But yeah, get yourself on a really good probiotic. Do your research on that. A prebiotic powder can actually work, which is kind of ironic because I spent so long hating fiber supplements because, the GI specialist that was the only thing he tried to do with me. But if you're eating a whole food plant-based diet and you need a little bit of extra help and, you got out the dairy, you got out most of the meat and, you're mostly anti-inflammatory there and you're leaning into all the herbs and spices and good things like that, and you're still having some issues, a prebiotic powder can really help because there is still that gut-brain connection that may be playing a bigger role than what you can control through your diet. So a prebiotic powder can actually help bulk up your stool. And so if you're someone who does get impacted by, the stress of everything and that causes you to go to the washroom, it can really help. So I really like acacia gum. I've been using that lately. I love ginger juice. That's something I really hone in on with my clients. I get them to make homemade ginger juice from fresh ginger because it's anti-spasmodic and anti-inflammatory. What else? Making sure you're getting your water in. That's such a simple one. But most of us are drinking crappy quality water. And I just did a session on water in my Facebook group yesterday because I was like, we need to talk about this. Most of us are drinking highly contaminated water. Getting in at least I don't know what that is in the States, but usually I recommend around 2 liters at least. Because most of us are only drinking a couple glasses of water a day and we're wondering why we're chronically constipated. And then one of the biggest recommendations that has, nothing to do with food choices itself, but chew your food. Most people are literally sitting there inhaling their food. They're not eating mindfully. They're sitting on their phones. They're sitting not really in an environment that's conducive to relaxation, because our body, when we're in a stress state, our body literally just goes, oh, digestion's not important, fight or flight mode, muscles, heart, eyes, energy. We need that for, getting away from a situation. And most of us are eating on the run. We're eating at work in front of our computers. So sit somewhere where you can actually focus on your food, chew your food, don't eat in front of, your phone. I mean, I get it, the TV is really attractive, but if you can avoid it, please do. Sit amongst family and friends, right? And that's super important. And most of us, again, are just inhaling our food. And if undigested food particles enter the GI tract, they're going to cause inflammation. There's no doubt about it. So chew your food. You'd be surprised how big of how big of a difference, that could make. And then one last thing would be avoid drinking huge amounts of water around your meal times, just because that can dilute digestive juices. which can be an issue if we're trying to really allow our body to have the best chance at digesting our food.
Yeah, that's a good one. My mother always told us, I forgot how many times you have to chew each bite, like 25 times before you swallow.
Yes, good on her.
Right? Oh yeah, she's why I am who I am today.
Awesome.
So yes, and not turn the TV off. My husband likes watching the TV, and I'm like, I just want peace. I don't want to be distracted. I like having that enjoyable moment of having this wonderful meal that we put in front of us. So I totally agree with all that. Those are great tips for someone. Water, I'm a big advocate of lemon in my water. Every morning we're drinking a glass of lemon in the morning. I feel that really activates the enzymes and gets things moving too. So
yeah, it just gets the digestive juices flowing for sure.
Yeah, great tips. So you and I are in this coaching program and together, which is where we met. And you have a program that you launched a while ago or recently. I can't remember what you told me. It's
pretty recently, yeah.
Okay. And tell us a little bit about that, because I think that's very exciting, because that's something that I am in the process of still launching. But it's such a great thing because you don't have to work one-on-one with everybody. You can work with people on a different level all over the world. So it doesn't matter where you are. You don't need to be in Vancouver, just like me. I'm working with people all over the world. So give us a little rundown on that. And if they want to get signed up with your Facebook group or.
Yeah, absolutely. So first off, I have a free Facebook community. So anyone who wants to learn more about, any kind of gut health imbalance that they're dealing with or any symptoms that they're dealing with, it's called the Plant-Based Solution Facebook group. So you can search that. But the program itself is the Plant Powered Gut Academy. And it's a 12-month intensive, group program where I take you through literally the A to Z of how to power your body, or fuel your body, I should say, with plants, whole plant foods, and really get to the core of the why your symptoms are happening and how to, do something about that on all angles, right? It's not just food, although food is a huge component, and obviously that's what I'm about, but it's much more than that. There's all the lifestyle factors that come into play, water and toxins in your house and all that different stuff. So I take them through all of that stuff in that 12-month program, and I really help guide them along the way with the accountability, the support. We do bi-weekly coaching calls. We do bi-weekly, lessons where I'm giving them a live lesson. It's a great community of women, and it's small and it's growing. It's only a few months old, or 2 months old actually. And it's my baby. It's incredible, like being able to watch these women grow and stepping alongside of them to help them go through the same journey that I, had to go through, and all the necessary steps that are involved in that, because everyone wants a quick fix. No one wants a transformation, but I'm not selling quick fixes. I'm not selling medications. I'm not selling any of that stuff. It's about, transformation and really doing the work, showing up, making your body your only home, your ecosystem a priority, and really trying to power that with plants and with the right lifestyle strategies, because, this is the only home we have. And it's important to take care of it. So it's been a really awesome journey to really jumpstart this program, and I can't wait to see it grow. So that's the Plant Powered Gut Academy. It's 12 months long, and it's the best thing I've ever done.
That's fabulous. And you're working with people all over Canada, USA, I would imagine too. Any Europeans or Australia?
Norway, mostly American and Canadian. It's funny, there's a few women who actually are from like my home city, so it's kind of like I know of them through other people, but definitely from all over. So it's like I said, it's still growing. We're only about 10 women right now, but I have one from Norway and mostly just the States and Canada. But anyone from all over the world. It's really cool, as long as your time zone fits somewhat, it'll work.
Right. And you have ways for people to look at recordings and everything else. So I know.
Yeah, exactly.
You've got so much to offer. So this is fabulous. I'm very excited for you. I'm very excited to keep our
Thanks,
friendship and relationship going, and I'll help out in any way I possibly can. And I really appreciate you taking the time to talk to me today.
Thank you so much for having me. This has been awesome.
You are welcome. And I will post information on how to get in touch with Roslyn and her business information on the podcast and on the YouTube. And I look forward to seeing you soon.
Yeah, thanks. You as well.
Okay, take care. Bye-bye.
Bye.